Welcome to Power of X-Men, the podcast where we review every single issue of the revolutionary, groundbreaking, punk epic mutant masterpiece known as Morrison's New X-Men. I am the Uncanny Dayspring.
And I am the new Flinkman, and you just did that so beautifully. I think that's the best intro we've ever had.
I wanted to be performative today because I've missed your face. It's been a couple weeks.
It has been a couple weeks. We keep doing this to the Familia. We're like, oh, we're back on track. But you're a busy little boy. So like anybody who follows you on social media should hopefully understand why it's taken us a month to follow up on our last episode.
I am unemployed for 2 weeks. I have no gigs for 2 weeks. I am so happy. And I think my next gig is somewhere like Detroit, but it's just a one-nighter. So I am excited just to sit down and edit the podcast. I'm going to be DMing you at like 3 a.m, be like, we need to do this, and that.
Oh, yeah. We're not even halfway through the Morrison run at this point, and you're already like DMing me, our next deep dive is gonna be, I'm not gonna spoil it for everybody because it is exciting and I did agree to it, but like maybe don't jump that far ahead on the game board just
okay.
Yet.
Wait. The thing is, I am drunk on a plane or an airport and I'm listening. I download episodes of our podcast so I can listen back and sort of like make mental notes of like what can be improved or whatnot. And I just have so much fun talking to you that I'm like thinking to myself, the next thing that we do. So you're right, I do get ahead of myself, but it's only because I love you so much.
And you know, and I love you, but it just goes to show that we are excited about we're excited about books from the past. We're not so excited about current comics, but we'll always have the X-Men comics of yesteryear to get us through. So yeah, it's like I don't think we'll ever run out of things to cover, like ever.
Speaking of things and books from yesteryears, you, because I lost trivia, made me read Jean Grey and Emma Frost, giant size Jean Grey and Emma Frost by Grant Morrison and Russell Dauterman. And why did you pick this issue?
Well, first I have to Jane you because you said Grant Morrison wrote it.
Oh, you're
Jonathan Hickman.
Sorry, I meant Jonathan Hickman.
I picked this to read because our last episode covered New X-Men 121, which was actually written by Grant Morrison, illustrated by Frank Quitely, and it was the all-silent, nuff-said issue where they, used their telepathic powers to dive into Xavier's brain and see what was going on with Cassandra Nova, et cetera, and that was a tool that Hickman and Dauterman utilized again in the Krakoan era for a special giant size issue that pretty much just aped not the entire, there's like, maybe the middle portion of it, there's some differences, but the framing of it is basically identical. So I wanted to dive into those two and sort of do a quick comparison for everybody. I'm just curious, how did it hold up against, we have a whole episode about the new X-Men issue. We love it very, very much. How does this stack up to the original issue for you? He's doing the double thumbs down.
Listen, I am so sorry to say that I was disappointed when I read this issue back in, 2020? And yeah. I'm disappointed reading it 5 years later. Listen, the art is beautiful. Russell Dauterman's art, nothing to do with Russell Dauterman's art. And Hickman's writing, again, nothing to do with lack of writing, but how about direction? But here's my main quarrel with this. I think when you read the new X-Men silent issue, there is such a profound reason why it's a silent issue and why it was executed the way it did. This one just felt like, I don't know why this homage was coming out of nowhere. It also is very unfortunate because this is the first issue that Jean and Emma actually have time together since Jean's death in New X-Men. Yep. And it did not deliver in the way that the New X-Men issue delivered the tension between Jean and Emma. So right off the bat, I remember thinking, oh my God, we're going to get Jean and Emma sitting down and talking about what happened during New X-Men. And it didn't happen. It's just a straight up homage of them journeying. For the familia who hasn't read it, it's just Jean and Emma going into Storm's mind to rescue Storm because the children of the Vault have infected her with the machine virus. That's it.
And keep in mind that the silent issue, the new X-Men silent issue, was payoff for, what had been happening in, 4, 5, 6 issues previously, whereas this Storm and the Children of the Vault subplot, I believe, if I remember correctly, just sort of came out of nowhere. Like, there was no mystery going into this. It was just, we were just thrown into, Jean and Emma are teaming up again to telepathically go spelunking into somebody's, psyche again. But we had no setup for it. It came out of nowhere. And I remember, like you said, being so excited at the time, like, yes, an issue devoted to Jean Grey and Emma Frost sorting out their bullshit post-Morrison era, post Here Comes Tomorrow, post Jean, telepathically or cosmically, she was a cosmic being at that point, cosmically nudging Emma and Scott into being together, and the ramifications for that, and the ramifications for the entire mutant race of them then being the co-leaders of like the entire mutant race when their backs were up against the wall, during, the decimation and whatnot. So there was a lot of things that this issue could have been to Jean and Emma fans that it wasn't any of them. It was just a literal recreation, a retread of something that we have already done before. And as beautiful as it is, Russell Dauterman is an incredibly talented artist. He draws Emma particularly gorgeous. He gives her that sort of snooty look to her that the character really needs to succeed. But again, it's a retread of a story that has already been told, and hands down was told better the first time.
It was told better the first time. It breaks my heart to say that.
There's just no reason for this for being, honestly. As beautiful as it is, as, interesting enough of a story as it is, there's no reason for it. There's no reason to homage that other than the creators wanted to. And I'm pretty sure at the time Russell Dauterman just said, Hickman asked me what I wanted to do, and this is what I wanted to do. I'm pretty sure that's what he said.
Is that what it was? Oh, you see, that breaks my heart because I think, again, like what you were saying, there was so much payoff for that silent issue. And not only that, again, like as we discussed, if you want to understand the Jean-Emma dynamic, it's right there in that silent issue. And here, it's just not there. I mean, there's some cute moments, like when they're about to rip Storm out of like the virus. Emma's just like, whatever, and they pull together, and that's gorgeous. But there are some things that, like, I feel like miss the mark, like especially when Jean approaches the two lions that are symbolic of Storm, and she shows them reuniting in X Factor, but then Emma's like shrugging and shows a body swap, and I'm like, why? Like, astonishing X-Men, Emma and Storm found some mutual respect for each other there. And there are other moments throughout the last 20 years that Emma and Storm had tender moments. And I'm just saying, if you're approaching a psychic rescue here, Emma, I don't think would have been that facetious so quickly.
Apologies to everyone for my audio quality just dropping out randomly now. My microphone just shit the bed. I guess the Children of the Vault didn't like that we were talking shit about their issue, and they came in and they destroyed my technology. Everything you said is true. It's just, I'm mad at you right now because that was one of my trivia questions that you just talked about. You just answered. I was going to be like, what are the homages? And you got them. So good for you for that. So,
all right. I'm 1 point ahead in the trivia. I love that. But so I think, though, the key to liking this issue, the Jean Grey and Emma Frost, the key is to understand that it's a larger Storm story. And this is tea that we got in the back end a couple of years ago. But the reason why this crossover, this giant size event was supposed to exist was because Storm at the end didn't want to be resurrected in the new body because she was pregnant. She was supposed to be pregnant. So when you look at it from the lens like that, I can forgive this, but of course that's not what happens at all. Right. So, it
might be what's happening now.
It's true. But I'm disappointed in this issue. Again, it just didn't deliver. I don't know why it needed to be a straight up homage. And the only thing that really have been noticeably changed is that Wolverine and Cyclops are a little bit more touchy feeling with Jean, and this, of course, was one of the breadcrumbs that we were given of this Krakoan throuple that they were in.
And I think, well, another key difference for me, or just in general, is that Emma and Jean never get separated in this. They are a team throughout, whereas in the original story, Emma got hung up on the Xavier face stores and all the green goo and whatnot, whereas here, her and Jean are equal partners in this throughout. And I think you kind of miss the character nuances of these two characters hate each other but respect each other and are begrudgingly like working together that you got in the Morrison Quietly issue. Here, you don't get any of, the levels of their relationship. I don't think you just sort of get Emma and Jean teaming up. And again, that's not the story any of us wanted. We wanted to dive into the Jean and Emma dynamic now post all of these years of Jean being dead. And this was just a really straightforward team up and a really straightforward homage. And in the end, the ending doesn't even matter because they didn't follow through on what the plot was going to be. So this issue, in hindsight, is kind of even more of a waste, honestly, since you just reminded me that there was a whole plot point that these giant size issues were supposed to be setting up that they didn't even follow through on. So you're reminding me why I gave up on Krakoa half. So did everybody else.
It's true. They just didn't care. I mean, listen, we'll get into this when we get to our listener hot take questions. But one of the things I will say, I did notice that thing that Emma and Jean were together throughout the entire issue. There are two thoughts I had. That one, maybe the Children of the Vault, their psychic, defenses weren't as powerful as Cassandra Nova's, or two, Emma has substantially grown in the years that Jean has been dead, and sort of she rose to the occasion. But again, there's no evidence to give us an answer here because I'm going to tell you, I think your reading of that new X-Men Silent issue was spot on. I don't even think Dauterman or Hickman understood those dynamics. That's a shady take. I am sorry, but it's just it's not present here. This was what you just said, straightforward.
Yeah, and I mean, listen, sorry to Hickman, but one of my problems that I have always had with Hickman is he kind of just does what he wants without regard for the nuances or continuity that has come before. And I don't always think that his take on things is as interesting as he thinks it is. And that's the issue that I had throughout. Again, I've said it a million times. House of X, Powers of 10, I loved both of those series. The setup to the Krakoan era was absolutely incredible, but once we actually got into the monthly books, it fell off pretty much immediately for me. So I think Hickman is an ideas man, not so much a actual story and follow through kind of. I think people who like his Fantastic Four and Avengers will argue with me all day, but I really don't think you can deny that that's sort of what happened with the X-Men. He put all of his ideas into the story up front and then just was kind of throwing shit at the wall after that and focusing on the weirdest things. We could go on.
We talked about this when we were doing Generations of X. They were throwing so much at the wall, and it's like they wanted to, what they called it, Claremonting, planting so many seeds here and there, and it's like, we just stop. You've done enough. Enough has been done. Just follow through on some of your stuff. And
on one thing. Yeah. Follow through on one thing.
And they just seemed like it was, but I hold, because, well, I guess he was head of X, so we can't hold editorial accountable because he was supposed to be the showrunner. But I don't know. We'll get into it more when we get into listener questions because I think we're going to do some crossover there. But this issue, listen, it's beautifully done. I think if you don't know the silent issue from New X-Men, this was a fine issue. But again, there was so much hype for this Jean and Emma reunion, a proper Jean and Emma reunion, because last time they had seen each other was at the end of X-Men Disassembled, and Jean looks at Emma and says, "You erased us," right, when Emma had mentally wiped the planet of mutants' existence. This was the first time they actually, well, no, they had something during the Krakoan era, but this is their first.
Passed a beer.
Yeah, they passed a beer to each other, but this was their first issue together, reunited.
And it should have been so much more than it was.
And this, by the way, wait, one more rant. This is the costume Jean should have had in the Krakoan era, which is the X-Men red costume, but just green and yellow. instead
I
of
agree.
the 60s dress.
I mean, listen, I will fight for that mini skirt's honor all day, every day. But I agree, this is a great take on a costume for Jean, and it should have been her look for sure. But we could dive into the Krakoan era all day. We're going to again here in a little bit with the listener questions, but before we move on completely, I do believe I still have three trivia questions for you.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Got one. We're going to say you already got one right because you usually need a handicap when it comes to so we're going to give you that. So my first question, in New X-Men number 121, does Emma or Jean Cyclops and Wolverine before they go in? And is it the same person in the one shot?
It's Jean who does it because I remember her red fingernail, and I think it's Emma who does it here.
Ding, 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 ding.
Did I get it right? Wait, let me check. Yes, it is. I did get it right. Yeah, because Jean has a red fingernail and Emma has a glove, and that's because of her finger. Wow, that's a really future Power of X-Men post right there.
Listen, I came up with these literally 5 minutes before we came on. So, they might not be the hardest, but I put some thought into this.
Okay, that was a good one. That was really good. And the only reason that I remember it is because this time when we read it, I looked at Jean's fingernail, and I like Quietly a lot, but there was something about her manicure that I thought was so disgusting.
Oh my God.
I don't know. Anyways, but go.
I love that. I hold on. I have to look at this weird fingernail now. Okay, but while I'm looking that up, the next question is, in this giant size one shot, after they discovered the giant tree of Storm, what is the duo's primary mode of transportation?
Oh, it's the elephant with the wings.
What kind of wings? Let's get specific.
Butterfly wings.
Congratulations. Ding, 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 ding,
ding, ding, ding, ding, ding.
Okay,
of course.
So you won, but we're going to go ahead and ask the fourth question.
The easiest trivia ever. But as if I did not stare at every panel of this as it published, just to get a morsel of like Jean Emma like shade.
Okay, so you're right about the fingernail.
Yeah.
She looks like she's like gonna
pull it up.
nose.
Let me see it. Yeah, isn't it like the weirdest? Like,
she's gonna pick her nose with that fingernail.
It's gross. Sorry, I love the God Queen so much, but she's like, "Oh, I have a Mulko. I have to pick this before we go in."
Okay. Last question.
Okay.
What is Wolverine doing at the end of New X-Men 121 when they come out versus what is he doing at the end of Giant Size X-Men?
Okay, well, I remember because he was reading a little book. We talked about this because I love that. Like Cyclops is listening to the iPod, he's reading a little book. This time he's sitting next to Cyclops and is he smelling a flower? Is he smelling a Krakoan flower?
Yes.
Wait, let me see. I don't believe you.
4 for 4. Congratulations.
He is smelling a Krakoan flower.
Yes.
Yeah, he is. I got it right.
You do know things every now and then. Congratulations. Okay, so now you get to pick how you're going to punish me. I made you read this nonsense. So
okay, I have to think. Let's come back to this because I wasn't expecting to win.
No, I wasn't expecting to win either. That's fine. Everybody deserves a win every now and then.
I feel though we should keep it within theme, so I definitely want to do something of the time. Maybe we can check into where the books are at this time. I mean, we already said that we want to do Extreme X-Men with Num Num, so we're not going to do Extreme X-Men, but I want to do something fun. Okay, I'm going to think about it and I'll circle back.
Yeah, stew on it. Circle back.
Today, we are doing New X-Men 122 by Grant Morrison and Frank Quitely and Hi-Fi doing the coloring, and this is a kickoff of Imperial.
We dive right into it. It is an opening splash of Steersman Amundra with a giant wheel, and it cuts to the next page. We learn who this person even is, and that this giant wheel is steering a Shi'ar ship containing Lilandra and the Imperial Guard, and it is quickly established that they are on the run from Cassandra Nova, and they are all that is standing between the planet Earth and a Shi'ar super destroyer that Nova is now in control of.
Let me tell you something. I love Morrison so much, and you can tell when Morrison has a literary boner when it comes to like space odysseys. Like Morrison loves crafting like interstellar politics and empire. Everything here I think is so fleshed out. When like Smasher is like, Empress, I have no meaning beside you, and Lilandra's like, darling, I know who I am. Smash, like he goes flying through space. I think these opening pages, after getting such, I don't want to say like passive issues, but lots of setup, a lot of talking, a lot of setups. Morrison just, they know how to accelerate when you need to accelerate and slow down when you need to slow down. Master of craft. I will say, I think this is the best Morrison is when it comes to interstellar politics, because, and I say this with a lot of love, something like Green Lantern, I can't, it's gibberish. Like when Morrison was writing Green Lantern and dealing with all the space politics, I could not follow along. Here, I could follow along. I don't know if it's because I have a stronger base for Shi'ar knowledge, but yeah.
I haven't read Morrison's Green Lantern. Green Lantern is not, unless it's Kyle Rayner and crazy ass Hal Jordan going full parallax and destroying the Green Lantern Corps, I don't have a lot of interest.
I'm not going to recommend it.
Okay.
It's not poorly written, but it is so dense. It's like a Samuel Delaney sci-fi novel where you just have to like have a lot of coffee and sit down. You can't passively read it. You know?
You got to be an active participant in the reading.
Yeah.
Okay, so I will say Morrison's writing here is great, but I feel like the art. Okay, this is going to be like a very rare criticism of Frank Whiteley, but I have to say he's not. I feel like this should read more like a scary movie chase. Like it's like a chase scene. They have a monster chasing after them. They're smashing through walls. I don't. It's detailed. It's nice to look at. The characters look great, but the action and the terror of it all doesn't quite hit right for me. And after, something that rang as true as the destruction of Genosha did, I'm not buying the panic and the terror that I feel like should be here. It's not bad by any means, but I don't think it's selling it quite as much as it could.
Yeah, listen, I agree with you on that. One of my notes on these opening pages is that I don't quite understand where we are, like the ship, and then it explodes, all that stuff. Like the action seems a little bit more nebulous, and I agree it should be more horror movie. Particularly the one scene I don't like, and this is probably my least favorite Quietly panel, is when they look into the other side of the wall psychically, and they see, who are they? Forum's dead. Her idea with her, and Super Guardian Mammoth. Like those two piled on top of each other felt cheaply done.
And just a quick rest in peace to the elephant guy. I mean, we saw the silhouette once at the end of the issue where Xavier was being teleported up to the ship, and we were like, who the fuck is this elephant guy? Well, we don't really have a chance to know because, we just get an ass shot as he's dead on top of this redhead lady. I mean, okay, yeah. R.I.P. to that guy.
R.I.P. Super Guardian Mammoth. That was their name, so God rest. But yeah, that would be my criticism for these pages. But listen, I think Cassandra Nova, I love the distinction that it's Cassandra Nova using Xavier's brain. That is a very, so she may be in there, but she's using biologically his brain as a weapon. I don't understand, the psychic parasites around her.
I mean, I don't understand necessarily why they're there, other than it's just a cool visual. I was going to say that the only thing that sells me on the horror of it all is how Quietly has rendered Xavier's broken body inside of this multi-armed psychic parasite sort of thing. I think it's just to make it more physically imposing.
The thing that really, okay, here's the thing. It's not explained. I can take a leap as a reader and go along with it, but they go out of their way to explain the bug exoskeleton in Cerebra, but they don't explain this. That's the one thing, and maybe they do later on, and that's fine. But as of right now, I'm like, why did you have to talk about the machinery on Xavier in such great detail, but then you gloss over these parasitic, psychic apparitions around Cassandra? It's just as weird. It's just weird. But and then the other thing that I'm curious about, so Lalandra sent Smasher to Earth, and there are people in space. So can they survive in dead space? Can the Shi'ar survive in dead space? I'm assuming Smasher just has extra abilities that allow him to, but everyone else, they look kind of dead.
They're dead.
They're dead.
Dying.
Okay.
She specifically says only Smasher can make it, so
Gotcha.
it's not super clear because they do have the ship. It's a pretty small explosion, but on that double page splash with the title and the credits, it does show that the ship explodes. So presumably because Lalandra said only Smasher can make it, he's our only hope, that these bodies sort of traveling with him here are
just
dead.
Corpses. Okay, good.
But I still don't quite understand how Smasher makes it all the way to Earth from wherever they're located here. Does it have something to do with like that rainbow energy that's sort of inexplicably here? There's some confusion, I agree, on these pages, but they're still beautiful. And the writing is A++, but this is, so far, I feel like this has been a couple of missteps from Frank Whiteley here.
Yeah, I mean, and it doesn't even look like Shi'ar. Like, it doesn't even look like Shi'ar people, right? Because I'm assuming these are civilians, and they look like there's a blonde person in the background, which of course can be an Imperial Guard, but like this person over here on the upper right has like a cell phone.
They got hair.
And they got hair. Like, where are their feathers and their markings on their face? I don't know. Does not feel very Shi'ar. Maybe it was like a cargo ship. Maybe it was a cruise. I don't know. It's fine. We can use our imagination here. But I agree with you. The writing is good. The art in of itself is beautiful. The coloring is great. But there's something that's not aligning with all of them when they typically are aligned.
The art isn't selling the narrative as much as it usually does.
Okay, but those opening pages are done. And then we get a shot of Earth, and it zooms in on the mansion, and the mansion is an X, and Emma is delivering a morning assembly news to the school in such an Emma fashion. I would have killed to have been in like 9th grade and have Emma Grace Frost as my teacher.
I can't imagine. Like, I'd be like, yes, queen, teach me, educate me, Emma.
Let me just read some of her lines really quickly because I think they're so good. Our mission is still the same, to teach you the skills necessary for survival in a world which still prefers to see us as freakish and threatening. But we also want to learn from you. We need your thoughts and fresh ideas for the future of mankind. In the meantime, I hope you'll join me in welcoming back the very popular Dr. McCoy. Perhaps now that he's managed to drag himself out of that comfy coma, he'll be able to tackle our flu epidemic. And finally, anyone still wishing to complain to Mr. Logan about injuries sustained during yesterday's field expedition will, I'm afraid, be completely wasting his or her time.
And you left off on one of my favorite Emma lines of all time.
I know. I'm letting you say. I knew what you wanted to say. That's why he let you pick it up.
Did you know you picked up the psychic vibes that I wanted it? Okay. So
Deliver.
The line is, the whole world is watching us now. We must be nothing less than fabulous. Emma, you cannot say what you want, okay, about the story, the characterization of Scott and Emma, whatever, Cat Beast, whatever. But anybody who says that Grant Morrison does not have the best handle on the character of Emma Frost is lying to themselves.
Here's the thing. I was thinking about it this morning, because we've had to endure so much backlash for Morrison, especially when we first announced we were doing New X-Men. And my thing is like, okay, you don't like the costumes, you don't like the setup with the X-Men, but I don't know how you cannot look at this and not be like, holy shit, this writing is epic. We're going from the Shi'ar literally disintegrating, a space attack, and it's imminent, it's coming to Earth, and then we just switch scenes, and Emma's like, well, I'm sorry, we have to be nothing less than fabulous to these students. It is such a reward and payoff because, as we find out in this issue, Charles wants to take what Cassandra Nova did, which was to weaken them and make them a public school of mutants, but turn it into a strength, to invite the media here to show mutants this is just an academy for mutants to excel. And basically, these are early. I don't know how far STEM goes back in the education system, but this is like the early frontier for STEM. Like the mutants are redefining curriculum and they're tailoring it to individual students. I don't know. It's perfect.
It is perfect.
It's perfect. I'm sorry. You may not like it. To the familia who doesn't like it, that's fine. But it is well thought out. Sorry.
And it's not only is it the writing well thought out, I'm going to circle back to Frank Quietly and give him props here because Emma in her sexy diaper with the coat, with the tight bun, it's just this look as she's delivering this epic speech is everything. This single page could make the entire issue for me. But I do have to call out something.
Oh, it's the cuckoos. It's the cuckoos, right?
It's the cuckoos. There's 3 of them.
I knew.
Spoiler? Is this like, did they, like, there's only 3 cuckoos here, and famously, 2 of the cuckoos are dispatched later in the run, and we only have 3 cuckoos until the Krakoan era. So the fact that there's only 3 of them, it really stands out to me, and I think this is the first time they've all been the same height with the same haircuts.
Yeah, that's the thing that I was thinking of. Like, are these supposed to be the older cuckoos? Just because we know they're up until now they've been rendered differently. Obviously, this gets resolved in the next issue, but I agree. Is this foreshadowing? Because again, we know Morrison knows what they want. I love, by the way, just a quick note here, the fashion. You had to be around in the early aughts to understand some of this fashion because the cuckoos in those dresses with those like thick headbands was such an early aughts thing, especially with girls. I can only speak to Miami, but girls in Miami. And Jean with her zigzag ponytails, or excuse me, pigtails. That was so. I remember girls grabbing a pencil and zigzagging the top of their hair just so it can look like crisscross. It is, again, Morrison just had their thumb on the pulse of pop culture at the time.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I totally
So I'm going
agree.
like this. I'm going like this.
Well, since you've already jumped ahead to Jean's incredible pigtails. I mean, like, forget your X-Men the Animated Series ponytail. I'm all about these new X-Men era pigtails. Tell us what's happening here. It's your girl.
So I was going to tell you, I thought your favorite line came from Jean in this issue, but Jean is sitting, cross-legged, telekinetically lifting herself up, looking at Charles' notes about the curriculum and learning, what he wanted to do, how to redefine things. And Cyclops kind of comes in and he's worried. He's here like, Jean, I'm worried about you. It's not just a telekinesis. It's Logan told me that during the U-Man attack, you manifested a Phoenix Raptor. And he's here like, you know what happens when you have these big emotions and these big feelings? And Jean's like, do I look like I'm not in control of my feelings?
Actually, yeah.
Jean, circle back on that because that's another note I have here. But they're starting to talk about the world and everything that's happening, and Jean's like, we have greater problems right now than just what's before us. I don't care if Republicans are scared by our glowing eyes. Charles is dying. And so they go into Cerebra where Charles is on life support and the entire team has assembled there.
I might come across as one of those like pervy comic guys, which whatever. But can we just take a second to acknowledge how hot Scott looks in this scene? I mean,
hot.
The tight shirt is shirting, the leather pants are pantsing, and I think I said this in one of our first episodes doing this coverage, but I love how Quietly draws him slim, like he's supposed to be. Cyclops shouldn't be like Mr. Bouncerhead Muscle Man in shape. Of course, he should be in shape, but his nickname has been Slim since literally the first issue of X-Men. So in my headcanon, he should look more like this, less like Jim Lee, who is
Yeah.
like thick and wide and broad. This is an A+
Yeah.
depiction of Cyclops, in my opinion.
He should be slim. He should be lean. Lean is like the key word for Scott. Yeah. Although I love a 90s Jim Lee Cyclops, but
I
that's
mean, I do. Don't get me wrong, that he's so chesty, and
yeah.
that's just not what Cyclops should be. But jumping into like the dialogue and like the actual plot here, this argument between them, it feels so real. Like he's concerned about her, and he's kind of bad with words, and she's evolving past him and can no longer like relate to his fears or worries or like maybe even his entire worldview. She just wants to help evolve their students and the world, and you can just sort of tell she's kind of subtly starting to lose touch with her humanity here.
Well, and she's resentful to him.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the way she's run, and I believe that said something. I believe Emma says that later, that she resents him, and you can see the resent right here, right, quite literally on her face. But I think the one thing that I like about Jean, and I thought if Flink would ever be a diehard Jean fan, it would be these pages, because Jean is just not accepting any bullshit. And I thought the line that you would love more than anything was like, "We have more important things to do than worry about whether our glowing eyes frighten the Republicans."
I mean, that is A+. That's one of Jean's best lines in 60 years of X-Men. Hands down, absolutely. Absolutely.
So the one thing that I just wanted to point out here is, like, I understand that Jean is being written very confidently. We don't want to go down that path of Dark Phoenix, that when she loses control, the whole world wets itself. But I will say, though, little note, Jean, you did look kind of in control of your powers before the Hellfire Club came for you. So I'm just saying, like, just because you're in control doesn't mean that that's true for tomorrow. And I think everyone has a right to be a little apprehensive. Like, she's being a little dismissive about it, but I think it goes to what you were saying, that she is just evolving past fears and anxiety. Yeah. But, like, I remember, I think I read this in a Wizard magazine article when they were sort of doing a roundup of the new X-Men issues, that the Phoenix Force was a growing concern. That, like, everyone was supposed to be well aware of it. We'll see how true that is as we go through the issues. But my memory is no one really thought twice about it until we got towards the end of the run.
They have gone behind the trick bookcase into Cerebra, where they find Logan, Emma, and Hank waiting for them. And Hank sort of starts explaining what's going on. Cassandra Nova put him in a coma, and if she hadn't done that, his limbic system wouldn't have been vacant for Xavier to come in and take control of his body. And help him figure this out. So you mentioned it earlier during this conversation. Logan asked what's all that bug stuff on him, and they do take the time to explain that Xavier has a sort of insect exoskeleton around him to protect him, to help him hold himself and his thoughts together. And Scott comes to the realization, like, okay, well, if his mind is in her body here, that means her mind is in his body, and that's, terrifying. And I just want to say, I jumping back to how Cyclops is rendered appropriately slim, just in this third panel here, look at him in comparison to Logan, who is clearly very short, but also very thick, muscle on muscle in this concise little package. And again, there was this tendency in the 90s for all men to sort of have this one standard superhero body type, and of course all of the women too. So I appreciate, just between Cyclops, Beast, and Wolverine in this one panel, I appreciate the attention to detail and the diversity of the male bodies here. They're not just all, because we all love a good Joe Mad where everybody is super chesty with their super snatched waist, but that's just not all superheroes can be Nate Gray. So I appreciate the diversity here.
I agree with you. And it's not even just the diversity of the bodies, but how those bodies move. Like,
Yes.
look at Emma just sitting down, like with her hands, on her waist and one of her legs up, like as compared to Jean, who is just like staring like this, with her arms to her side. It's just like, again, we've said this before, quietly just knows body movement and language. I cannot say enough great things about Quietly's art, but to go into some of these were the pages I didn't like, and I get it. They had to recap a lot, but for the readers who didn't quite put everything together or they're just jumping on. But this was an example where I thought Morrison was overly explaining too much. Like the bug skeleton, like it could have just been the X-Men's default life support. That's it. We didn't need to know that Charles manifested this because that gives me more questions than answers. I'm like, how is he manifesting this armor? And secondly, I just when Hank was talking about how he had to be unconscious so Charles can go into his body and guide him to the morgue, like I like the idea, and the way I always read it was that Beast was just smart enough to figure it out while he was laying unconscious. He like put everything together. So this was a little bit too much explaining from Morrison. One of the rare missteps where I'm like, Morrison's giving us too much.
Yeah, and you mentioned it after, I sort of got off on the body diversity before we got to it, but there is, like a quick 3-panel recap where Jean actually explains everything we saw without words in the silent issue, and that to me, like, yes, it does feel like Morrison over explaining, but it also kind of feels to me like an editorial thing. That doesn't feel like something Morrison of their own, volition would have put in there. I feel like that is editorial not having faith that fans would be able to explicitly understand what was happening in the silent issue without it being spelled out. I'm going to give Morrison the benefit of the doubt on that. That just doesn't feel like something
Yeah,
they would do.
I agree. And I think, and listen, rightfully, Morrison once said that they wrote for the intelligent 14-year-old, and I like that quite a bit. But I think editorial would be in the right to be like, wait a minute, in a world pre-Wikipedia, pre-summaries online, let's spell this out for the readers just so they have it. I can be forgiving of that, but I think it was just a world building aspects that I thought was a little bit too much. But listen, Morrison over explaining is still grade A comic book storytelling. Like that's
It's better than Hickman having everything happen off panel and never explained, and you just kind of have to go with it.
You are so sassy. By the way, I forgot, what did we post the other day on the Instagram page? And you left like a sassy comment about it. Was it Age of Revelation? I'm forgetting what it was
Oh,
something.
it was stupid. They're using the crucifixion
Yeah.
iconography again and again and again, and
You are sassy.
I'm just so sick of Marvel thinking they're doing something interesting by just dredging up people's nostalgia and then giving us really bad stories. Like, no.
You're dark Flink man.
I'm in my Dark Moon era.
You're in your villain era. You're in your Dark Phoenix era.
It's totally fine. Totally fine.
Is there anything else you wanted to address on those pages of them in Cerebro?
Well, yeah, so they kind of lay out exactly what is happening here. I mean, Jean says, she announced our existence to the world. She wanted to expose and weaken us. She probably gave us this flu. And Beast is like, well, and then there's a connection to John Sublime's U-Men, and she's setting us up for another attack. So, like, this is the X-Men finally catching up and understanding what they're up against and what is happening. And through their dialogue, they basically establish that none of this is real to Cassandra Nova. The only thing that's real is her and Xavier and their grudge. Her mentality of the situation hasn't evolved past when they were in the womb and he was her enemy, and that's all she knows. Nothing else was real. And I love this idea that she's so evil and that life means so little to her, because in her mind, the universe isn't real. All that's real is her hatred for Charles. And so she's simply not concerned with anything or anyone else. It's literally all just collateral damage to her. And that's a really scary villain. Like, you can't reason with that. That is just pure evil personified. And I think, The X-Men are so good at having these like layered villains, like Magneto or Madeline, who there's shades of gray to them. You can understand their motivations, and Cassandra Nova is just pure fucking evil and needs to be taken out.
I agreed. And it's mentioned that she doesn't even know human emotions. She just mimics them. And she was born without a body, which, Morrison's the one who created her. So that's where we're going to respect the lore. But I think later on, speaking of, the Krakoan era and not caring about continuity, 10 lives and 10 deaths of Wolverine, I think they show Cassandra being stillborn, like an actual physical body. So, wrong. Like, just is in the page, man. Like, come on. Like, I don't know why we have to be the ones to call out this stuff. But anyways, I agree. I think she is just, for all intents and purposes, an evil character that cannot be reasoned with, and the X-Men are right to be afraid. And now we see all of these workings that she's done behind the scenes.
Yeah, and before this scene closes out, I mean, you mentioned it earlier. Jean says that Charles, asked her to invite the world's media to the school. Like, for some reason, he wants an audience for this battle, which doesn't exactly feel like a great idea to me. But hey, whatever Charles wants, Charles gets.
Well, I mean, in fairness, they don't know it's coming. They're speculating.
They did. He says, in fact, I think she's softening us up for the next
attack. I agree.
There's another attack coming, and that she
would... But they can sneak in a media appearance before the attack.
Yeah, just real quick. Just get Trish Tilby over here.
No, I think it's all brilliant. And again, I think the writing is just on the nail. We're going to take this weakness and turn it into a strength, which is a very Xavier thing to do. And I think Jean's just saying right there that Xavier wants to make sure everything counts, and that he's going to deliver a final statement to mankind, because as we discovered, she had booby trapped her own body with a dementia that's really rapid, and Charles is going to be dead within a week.
Yep. That's her plan is twisted and evil and pretty brilliant. She's covered her bases here. But the X-Men have a surprise. What is that surprise?
So the X-Men have a surprise where Cyclops is like, hold my beer, I'll be right back. And he goes to visit Zorn. And behind him, as he's going off, we see Smasher entering the atmosphere. And just to tackle those Zorn pages really quickly, he goes to, where's Zorn? He's somewhere in China, and he's at some kind of retreat, and Cyclops asks Zorn for help.
He does. And so we're going to get where that's another thing, Morrison sort of listed out all the disparate plot threads of Cassandra Nova's plan that are coming together, but now we're bringing in Zorn, who has previously only made one appearance in an annual, so we're really starting to assemble the overall story here. And on this one page of Cyclops flying the X-Jet to go pick up Zorn, Jean asks him, what are you doing? And his answer is so real. Jean's like, is something wrong? And he goes, apart from everything, no. And I'm just like, man, in the year 2025, I feel that in my soul, because it feels like everything has a qualifier these days. So it's like, I had a lot of fun, but the world is still falling around me. But at least we had fun on that Zoom. You know what I mean?
It was a nice Zoom. I say that all the time. I don't want to get too dark for our listeners at home, but I'm like, there's no joy left anymore. You can't enjoy anything anymore. You can't wake up one morning and hear some good news. Anyways, but I have so many feels on this, and we can't really talk about it until later. But I just want to call out that I love that the monk, priest, whoever is at the retreat tells Cyclops I saw the dead bird, I saw it died, but then he took it with both hands, and presumably it came to life. I think I'd be curious to see how a lot of this stuff with the virus at the school and Zorn here, and how Zorn's powers work, as we find out later on. I'd be curious to see what Morrison's thought process was with all this.
Yeah, pay attention to Zorn's powers, everyone. Yeah.
Because
no spoilers.
No spoilers.
The use of his powers. So in between those scenes of Scott saying that he was going to go get Zorn and him actually arriving in China to do so, we have 2 pages with some really great moments between 2 of the original 5 X-Men here, Jean and Beast. Beast is in his lab. You know, he's looking kind of sad, and Jean is like, "Are you okay? You know, what is it?" And then, you know, Beast sort of gets into all the terrible things that Cassandra Nova did when she was attacking him in Xavier's body and forcing Beak to beat him over the head with the baseball bat. You know, Cassandra called me an animal, Jean. She said I was devolving into a worm. And of course, Jean tries to have some, you know, words of comfort, but, you know, Beast is like, "Oh, don't patronize me. I used to be able to play a guitar. Now I have these paws. You know, what if I keep devolving? What use would I have for poetry or music or all of this knowledge?" You know, his genius intellect. He admits that he is actually really, really scared. And, you know, Jean kind of gives him a little bit of a better pep talk. You know, it's not giving him the patronizing comments that she kind of was at the beginning of this. And just assures her, you know, Cassandra has no concept of cooperation, Hank. That's how we'll beat her. The X-Men will beat her as a team. And that's just something she can't understand, because in her mind, there's only her and Xavier. So this scene is excellent. I mean, Beast having PTSD, it makes so much sense. And I feel like that's the kind of story beat that a lot of writers wouldn't take as they're sort of moving their chess pieces around the board, you know, in preparation of the standard big comic book battle. And sort of circling back to what I said earlier, Jean's understanding that nothing and no one but Charles is real for Cassandra, and because of that has no sense of cooperation. That means that it's literally because the X-Men are a team capable of working together towards a common goal that they can defeat her. Their togetherness is their biggest strength here. It's not just, you know, super team marches into battle with super villain because that's how comics works. It's like the super team demonstrates why they're always practicing in the danger room and honing their powers together, is because together is their real power, not necessarily their individual. It was a really poignant scene that I think took a really important beat in the middle of all of this setup to again humanize and get into the heads of these characters. And that's just something that Morrison does so fucking well, and is one of the reasons this run is so special.
Yeah, I first of all, take us to church. I agree with everything you just said there. And I think there's a real great moment with Jean being compassionate and being human here still, because she looks at Hank again. She's resentful towards Scott. She's not resentful towards Hank, but she's here like, "So you'll learn how to play the drums." And when he's here like, "Well, I was thinking of doing this. I was trying to find a way to use the human technology to restart Charles's immune system." And Jean just holds his paw. She goes, "So I'll leave you to it." Like, she gets it. These pages, beautiful. Exactly for everything you just said, and the heart that Jean brings to them.
The heart of the X-Men.
The heart of the X-Men.
Who knew?
And then so we end the issue with Smasher finally arriving to Earth. He lands in the middle of a field, and he's here like, "I made it. I've only had to travel 4 trillion miles in space. I'm the Imperial Super Guardian Smasher, emissary of Lalandra. She's coming." And it pans out, and Super Smasher is just in a field with cows, and they go moo to him.
The last line of dialogue in this issue is literally moo.
And, you know, the irony that there's a big space invasion coming, and no one's there to hear it. He missed it, and he landed in a field with cows.
And I love this. I love this because usually double page splashes, especially those at the end of an issue, are like typically reserved for action or battles so big they can't be contained to a single page. And I'm like really obsessed with the fact that Quietly completely subverted that and closed with a double page splash of cows in a field. Like, that is just genius. That is the kind of cliffhanger you don't see in comics very often. And it's clever, and it's fun. This issue could have very easily ended with Scott saying, Zorn, we need your help. But instead, we take literally, 4 pages to have Smasher crash into a field of cows. And some folks might say that that's a waste of pages and it's a terrible example of the decompression that was sneaking into comics at that point. But I think it's just...
I think the entire thing is a decompression of the genre, because even like the monks around the X-Jet when Cyclops lands, you know what I mean? Like Jean's hair, everything. It's just so well done. This was modern comics. This is when comics are modern. This is how you do it for the time, you know? So I don't know. Listen, Quietly's art, perfect. Morrison, I will just say that there are some things with the writing that just kind of got me off a little bit, like that's all. But another slam dunk issue. That's it. What do you want? It's slam dunk.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's interesting that we are sort of clocking Morrison for the kinds of things that we would praise Chris Claremont for in the 1980s, which is having the characters specifically like state exactly what is happening rather than just showing. Yeah. That's why that feels a little out of place, but yeah, other than that, no real notes. I would say usually we're giving 10 out of 10 or like even 100 out of 10 to these issues. Yeah. I think I would give this one a 9 just because of what you said with Morrison. The dialogue isn't as necessarily sharp. It's a little clunkier than it usually is, and also I don't think Quietly sold the scary movie element that the opening scene should have had. So this is a 9 out of 10 for me, but I mean, it's still light years ahead of
anything we're getting today.
Yeah, definitely. So many things that we've gotten since and even before. So, you know, I can't fault it too much ever.
I'm going to say something shady. This is just an era where you can tell that the creators were passionate about the X-Men, knew the stories as best they could have. Because I can always forget, we've talked about this before, we can forgive any continuity gaps or any errors on page. And Morrison certainly has those later on, and we can discuss them when they come up. But it's evident when someone's passionate about the story they're telling versus phoning things in. And that's a take. And we had the Familia submit some hot takes because we got a message or two a couple of weeks ago where someone was like, can you please open it up to listener questions on the podcast? And
are y'all sick of our opinions?
Like, are you sick of our opinions already? Well, that's fine. We'll listen to your opinions. So weekly, we're going to try to solicit questions from people from the Familia, but I did a hot take segment on the Instagram, and so many come in, it's impossible to sit down and answer all of them, but I figured this was a great opportunity to kick off our listener question segment.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, are you ready? This first one is going to be completely you. Are you ready?
Oh boy, okay.
Okay. I didn't write down people's names, so I'm sorry. I'll try to get better with that. But the first submission that came in was Dazzler deserves better than Concert of Champions and Hellfire Vigil. No more lyrics.
I agree and I disagree with that hot take. The thing that I agree with is Dazzler deserves better than Concert of Champions for sure. You know, we're a big fan of Jason. He's a great writer. The Dazzler series itself was excellent, but the main conceit of Concert of Champions is Dazzler questioning herself. Her hair is falling out because she's having PTSD because she's so stressed about what happened to her at her last concert in the Dazzler solo series. And I'm just like, we've done this before. We have had Dazzler having hair issues a couple of times in the past. We don't need, that's retreading a plot line that was very unpopular with Dazzler fans in the past. And having her have that sort of crippling self-doubt, that's the kind of shit she overcame in the 80s. So we don't need to circle back on that. So I agree. That was a disappointment and not great for the character. Where I'm going to disagree is the lyrics. Dazzler is a pop star. She is a singer. She sings songs. She is going to have lyrics. And whether it's, a brief mention of lyrics, we see her on stage, singing Proud Mary in the Claremont X-Men issues, or we have her singing, "I Feel Your Body Heat" on the animated series. Music is a part of Dazzler. Lyrics make sense. Sometimes pop music lyrics are really, really cheesy. So I don't mind that. I think that positions Dazzler more uniquely than other characters. So quit with the crippling self-doubt, quit with the hair issues, continue showing Dazzler being a pop star, because that's what she is and that's what sets her apart.
I like Dazzler being a pop star quite a bit. Obviously, we've talked about this ad nauseum, especially with the first Hellfire Gala. I was like, she wouldn't just show up without rehearsing, without having a PR agent, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, that just wouldn't have been it. My note would be, though, I think it's low hanging fruit to make her the Taylor Swift of mutants.
Agreed.
I think that's low hanging fruit. Listen, the Hellfire Vigil, I thought, if you're going to give us a big Dazzler in Gray Malkin, prison story, great. But if this is going to be another Bendis era where Dazzler is supposed to have this big story, she's an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., haha, just joking, Mystique took her place, then I'm not here for it. But let's see. I'm hopeful, but I'm not hopeful. I'm hopeful because of Jason, because I love Jason, and I trust Jason, but I don't trust editorial, if that makes sense. I do not trust the editorial. Okay.
Well, hold on. One more thing before we move on.
Okay. Look out. Look out. He has something to say about Dazzler.
Dazzler's Hellfire Vigil look wasn't a slam dunk, but one thing I do love was her butterfly makeup being sunglasses, and I think that is a genius design element, and I think Dazzler's superhero looks going forward should utilize the butterfly makeup silhouette for sunglasses. I think that just it makes so much sense for her.
It looks a little Luna Lovegood, doesn't it, though?
I don't know who that is.
Fair enough.
I don't know her.
You don't know her. Okay. SH Figure Arts started their game versus Cyclops. Can't wait to complete the roster.
Okay. I mean, listen, I'm not the audience for those figures.
I love those. I am so excited for those. I cannot tell you how happy I was. I forgot, someone did give me the heads up that was coming, and I didn't believe them. And then it really happened. And we love the Tamashii Nations team. We were with them at Toy Fair. We went to the opening at the American Dreams Mall. I knew something big was also coming with Marvel. I didn't think it was going to be this big. My question, though, is, do you think, we're getting a Marvel versus Capcom set being done for SH Figure Arts at the same time that Hasbro is doing it too, rolling their Marvel versus Capcom? Is this all coincidence, or is it a collective thought? I don't know. I wish I knew more on the back end.
I feel like there has to be a reason, and maybe we just don't. Is there an anniversary, 25 years or something? I don't know. I feel like there has to be.
I don't know a proper anniversary, but obviously we got the games re-released this fall.
Yeah.
Or last fall, excuse me. And I'm curious if they were doing that re-release because they want to reignite the series. But I don't know if sales were good enough to justify that again. But
I bought it, and I don't even think I played it.
Oh my god, I play it all the time. I play it literally when I need to turn off my brain. I'm just playing it. I'm really excited for it. I don't know. Let's see. But they need to do a Rogue with the Hadouken. I want Rogue with the Hadouken. I'm excited for it.
I doubt they can do that. That's probably a Capcom intellectual property.
No, but SH Figure Arts is they have the IP for Capcom.
Have to pay dual licensing on it.
Okay, fine. Then we can take Ryu's Hadouken and put it with the Rogue. How about that? There we go. There we go. They can release this separately.
I'm sorry for shitting on your dreams, but
listen,
I think
I'm excited for it.
Is a beautiful figure.
Yeah, a lot of people are talking about that he has a thong, which I think is hysterical.
Great.
I mean, listen, we already talked about 90s Jim Lee Cyclops, so
we have already objectified Cyclops' body on this. Why not just go all the way and say give him a thong? It's a beautiful figure. I can't say that I'm not interested in buying it, but I have to draw the line somewhere, and I already have a million legends of Cyclops in that costume. So it's not for me, but I'm excited for people who are made of money and can afford to buy every X-Men action figure in existence, even when they're $100 plus.
They are pricey, but yeah, I pre-ordered too. Anyways, here's the next one. Wolverine is overrated and overused.
How can anybody talk about Laura like that? That's just so fucked up. Now, if we're talking about Wolverine's dad, then yes. But
I disagree. I think recently, I think they've done such a good job of putting Wolverine in his own book. Even with the Legends, he doesn't come with a Bat figure. They've done their best to put Wolverine in his own category, and people who want Wolverine can go to it. I don't think he's this Hellfire Vigil. He wasn't even in it. He was in it for like 2 panels.
no, I agree. I agree. I'm not Wolverine in the comics and the figures, like they have gotten a lot better at. You don't have to read a shitload or buy a shitload of Wolverine to get what you want out of Legends of the comics. So I agree, things have moved a little bit in the right direction there, but once again, I'm just not the audience for Wolverine, so, so I'm not picking. He's not overexposed for me because, like you said, I'm not following. They've segregated him a little bit to where people who are looking for Wolverine can find Wolverine, but people who are just looking for the X-Men don't have to overload on Wolverine anymore, which is a fair point. It's a good point to make. So yes, fine, I agree with you.
Can you say that one more time? Say that one more time. Say that
I
one more time.
agree with you.
I agree that in the past, of course, Wolverine was oversaturated.
Yes.
Of course, in the way that Spider-Man, Superman, all those heroes were oversaturated. I agree, but I think recently, in recent times, they've done a good job at segregating him. Okay,
I can agree.
Okay, so we got a lot on these, so I've condensed all the comments into these 2 points. From the Ashes is a complete failure. And also, we got From the Ashes isn't as bad as people say it is. Gail Simone and Eve Ewing are crushing it.
Okay, so the first one, From the Ashes is a disappointment, I think is demonstrably true. The sales are in the toilet, books are getting canceled, and no one is, the engagement on them is in the shitter. So I don't think anyone can deny that from whatever perspective, be it creative, sales, whatever, I don't think it's a failure in some way, no matter how you look at it, honestly. Whether that's from engagement or sales or whatever, but it's not, certainly not living up to the hype of, say, Krakoa or Astonishing or even the Utopian era. It's not like living up to these sort of relaunches we've had in the past. So it's an undeniable failure, in my personal opinion. Again, mileage may vary. And
I love that expression. Mileage may vary.
Right? I can't even express an opinion on the second point because I was so disappointed by how things started out and carried on for the first 6 or so months that I'm not even following Gail Simone or Eve Ewing anymore. So I can't even comment on whether their books are any good. So like, that's a failure. That's a failure. I don't care enough to check out even the stuff that people are saying is good because I don't believe it, because I'm not hearing it from enough people, because there's no hype naturally building behind these books. It's a failure. I'm sorry.
We are on the same page. Here's the thing, like I don't want it, like one of the things that I've realized with this last like hot take section that there are familia who really are enjoying From the Ashes, and I don't want to take that away from them. I don't, but at the same time, I think there should be a responsibility to people who have been with this IP, this franchise for decades, to be like, we are Wednesday Warriors, and we are not showing up for these comics. And I should have pulled out the numbers for the Hellfire Vigil, but they were sad. It almost like, I think it was 35% of people actually got the Hellfire Vigil last week. Another 35 said they'll wait till Marvel Unlimited, and then it was divided by, I'm not going to read this at all, or I'm going to pirate the books online, which that is a problem.
It's a problem.
That's a problem. We have been buying comics. I kind of came in and out, in the 90s because I was a kid, but since 2003, I have been buying X-Men comics weekly, and it has since ended. It's garbage, and the problem is these Wednesday Warriors, if they're not showing up, giving the hype. I'm sorry. I am very disappointed in Gail Simone. I will say this. I've read, I want to say maybe half of her run, and I think it's garbage. I don't think it's good. I think I like Rogue and Gambit and Nightcrawler, and I want them to be spotlit, of course, but it's not being well done. It's not an American Gothic series. I will give credit to Ewing. I actually think Exceptional X-Men, I may have been rough on that book, but taking it as a new team book of a like new cast of characters, I don't think it's poorly done. And I'm starting to warm up to characters like Bronze. Like I think that's well done. But the we have to be engaged with this material because we're doing a podcast because we want to be in the know on X-Men news. I don't think anyone else cares.
No. Yeah, no.
No one else, with the exception of like a few. I'm sorry to say it like this, but like a few readers out there are like, no, you're wrong. This is actually really good. That's great. But the larger comic book audience, larger pie, no one cares. And these books are not going to be successful. And the X-Men IP is just, what did you say, down the toilet? Like,
yeah. I just don't understand like who these books are for. And it just doesn't feel like Marvel is even acknowledging that they have lost readers here. I don't know. It's just, you'd think it would matter for something that the people who have been the foundation of their business for 30 years, the people, again, you and I have said it a million times, we've come in and out, but the thing is since we have had our own consistent disposable income, we have chosen every single week to spend $10 to $40, depending on what comes out that week, on X-Men comic books. For me, that number is now, and has been for probably 2 years now, is $0. $0. I'm spending $0 on the X-Men comics that Marvel is currently publishing. Why? And I'm not the only one. You, me, so many other people. The feedback on the Hellfire Vigil, poll says it all. We're not the only ones that are in this situation, and yet it doesn't seem like Marvel takes that seriously. It doesn't. There's been no course correction.
No course correction. They want to blame. You said this best the other day, where they want to blame the readers. It's always the reader's fault, and I think to a degree in the '90s and early aughts, fine, whatever. But like today's readers, we have access to Wikipedia, we have access to UncannyX-Men.net. We're vocal about it. We're smart. Like X readers are smart. They're an exceptionally smart fan base. I pulled up the numbers here, by the way. It really upsets me that they would not listen. And Tom Brevoort is an asshole. There's a reason why we've never had him on the podcast. I may have reached out to him a couple years ago, just been like, hey, we're reviewing AVX, whatever. But we did not reach out because I'll never forget the Form Spring situation. We talk about this daily, how mean-spirited he was. When talking about why wasn't Hope being trained by Rachel, and his response was something like, oh, I hate any character with the name Gray in it. Like, just a nasty, so ill-spirited to the people who are spending our hard-earned cash. And the Hellfire Vigil was $7.99.
I would have never paid $7.99.
$7.99.
Maybe $1.25 in 1991.
Bitch, like I have disposable income, dual income, no kids, and even I was like, I think this is too much for me. Like this is, I'm only buying this because I'll write this off somehow. But like, I just think it's so ill. No good feelings. All right, so we had 2,000-ish votes on this poll. 35% said yes, buying at my comic book store or Kindle. 30% said nope, not reading X-Men comics. 19% said waiting for it on Marvel Unlimited. And 15% yes, but reading it online for free.
So almost as many people said no outright, I'm not reading this in any capacity, as said, yes, I'm going to buy this.
Not only not reading this issue in any capacity, nope, not reading X-Men comic books at all.
which is what I voted for. And I'm literally sitting in a room, an X-Men themed fucking room. Like these characters are all around me as I look around the room. They are so important to me, and yet I don't give a shit about their new and current adventures. That is a problem. And Tom Brevoort, you said it. He is a problem. He is one of the reasons that I have no interest in this, because I know his taste level is not good, and he is the one that has for years, he's been on the, well, if you don't like it, vote with your dollars. Vote with your dollars and buy what you like and don't buy what you dislike. And the second these sales come crashing down because people like me and you are voting with their dollars and the sales are in the toilet because of it, he'll then turn around and say some shit like, well, you know, the only people who, the loudest people on the internet talking shit and saying that they don't like it are the people who aren't buying it or reading it. And it's like, you told us not to if we don't like it. And now you're trying to turn around and be like, well, they can't have an opinion on it because they're not reading it. Well, why are we not reading it, Tom Brevoort?
Well, so that's the thing he had said in like the Adventures in Poor Taste interview. He said, I think though, I'm gonna give him a little credit here because I think he did put up I know, he did put an interesting point, and this is something we see across a lot of fandoms, but the most vocal people online aren't necessarily the ones buying the books and talking about the material with any passion. And I think no duh, like, but you would think that Marvel should know who's buying the books, who's showing up to comic book stores, where those point of sales are at. I don't know how to track comic book sales, especially in a post-pandemic world, but I would just say, like, you should have a good grasp on your Marvel. Like, you're the industry leader. You should have a good grasp. And all this shows me is that Tom Brevoort, who is an industry leader, has no fucking clue what's going on. And they're listening to the vocal people online, Twitter, and again, across all fandoms, not just X-Men. And they don't actually know who their readership is. And that's why we're getting garbage like we're getting now. And again, I'm sorry. I like Gail Simone and other stuff. I think X-Men has been the biggest disappointment. And, anyways.
It's not good. It's not good. It's NG. It's no good, Jay.
NG. Sorry for the harshness there, but okay. Let me.
We ask people for their hot takes, and we are allowed to give ours as well.
I love that. Yes, you're right. Here's a little lighthearted one. I want justice for Jubilee on the big screen.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that we will get that. I think that when the X-Men come in live action in the MCU, like refresh, not just bringing in, legacy characters, it would be insane for Jubilee to not get the spotlight, given that she is the POV X-Men character for multiple generations of fans at this point. It'd be crazy.
It's so weird that Jubilee for the Singer movies was just a background character at best. And I guess when we finally got her in X-Men Apocalypse, Lana Condor played her. And I love Lana Condor voices Karu in Relakamon Karu, and she does a fantastic job. I just don't think she had that it factor to play Valley Girl. Like, let me restate that, because I think Lana Condor does have an it factor, but just not the Jubilee. Like, Jubilee's like the Bart Simpson of the X-Men. Just like, don't have a cow man, you know what I mean? And Lana is just a little bit more genuine and ingenue, in my opinion.
I agree.
So I hope we get a really good Jubilee on screen. I mean, it's sad to say that maybe Heather McComb was the closest.
Oh gosh, why Jubilee? I mean,
Jubilee was like probably the most accurate.
It's wrong. It's so wrong for so many reasons, but god damn it, Heather, we love you.
We love you, Heather. Okay. MCU X-Men will be inferior to animated X-Men.
Probably. I think I probably agree with that, but I've always kind of compartmentalized the different adaptations of the X-Men. Like, the comics are my Bible. Like, whatever happens in the comics, that is the X-Men to me. So I have always been able to separate the films and the shows and enjoy those for what they are without trying not to make direct comparisons to the comic. So yes, they would. I don't see how it could be. A live action could be as good as the animated series, much like the animated series is, 25-minute adaptations of these really complex comic book stories. So something is lost in the translation every time. So, yeah. But I don't think what I'm trying to say in like the most roundabout way is that I don't think it'll be the same, but it will be different and entertaining in its own way, just like the MCU films have been.
Yeah, I also think like the storytelling of something like animation versus live action, you have a little bit more room to tell stories, a little bit more visual leaps. Jeff and I were watching Avengers Assembled the other night, specifically the Secret Invasions episodes. That was so well done, and it's like in the way they were able to introduce a Fantastic Four in there was a way that they can't really do it in the MCU. So different mediums. So I mean, of course, animation is going to have more room to tell stories, but I wouldn't knock the MCU X-Men just yet until we see them. But I am a little skeptical with the MCU, but hopefully that's going to change with Fantastic Four.
Here's hoping. My God, please.
Okay, well, let's do two more just for sake of time. Leaving Krakoa was a downgrade.
I mean, in terms of the stories that we actually got once they left Krakoa, 100%. But I don't agree that the X-Men needed to stay on Krakoa to remain interesting or have good stories. I just think the quality drop-off was so significant after the Krakoan era that it feels like it was, it was a major downgrade, but I don't think that it had to be. I think it's just the decisions that were made that made it as such. I don't think the X-Men are going to be in this post-Krakoan slump forever.
I agree. I think that's a really astute point, because my main thing that I've always argued is that I think Krakoa should have been the new status quo. So even though you're going to do a reboot of the comics, they still should be on Krakoa, just built upon what you've done. But I agree, a good X-Men story doesn't necessarily they don't need to stay on Krakoa. They could be a variety of different things. And I think people are just wrapped up on that. But it's hard to go from such a high point with Krakoa to where we're at now. And I think it's just the hype for the comics right now, I'm telling you, is flatline. Our growth on social media, engagement, even with the podcast, is sort of stagnant. And it was on the rise so much because we had the Krakoan Age, we had Deadpool and Wolverine, we had X-Men 97. All of that contributed to so much hype for the X-Men, and now it feels like it's flatlined. It feels like no one cares about the... And you can see it, by the way, with even some of our contemporaries. Not enough X-Men pages are still around there. Not a lot of X-Men podcasts. There were so many X-Men podcasts before, and now most of them are on hiatus or taking a break, or even like us, we'll wait a couple weeks to drop a new episode. And that's symptomatic of the overall vibe with the X-Men now. And it's sad because we had suffered so much during those film rights era. And now we finally, we got the X-Men back. And now that hype that we thought was going to last a long time has sort of evaporated.
Yeah, and I want to be clear here. I dropped the X books during the Krakoan Age. So it's not like I am sitting here standing Krakoa thinking it was just the end-all, be-all, whatever. But it was a concept. It was a plan. It was a direction. There was a structure, a defined structure to... Well, not so much defined, but it had a direction, okay? Yeah. I don't know what I'm trying to say here, but there was a direction to it. There was an overarching reason for these books to exist. They were building towards a common goal. They weren't just books thrown out into the world with incoherent plots and inconsistent tones and no unifying driving force behind them. There's an aimlessness to the X-Men books right now that I don't recognize as ever having in the past before.
Agreed.
Even though I dropped it during Krakoa, I would still have defended the franchise and said, well, it's the X-Men, they're trying something new and different and bold, and it's just not for me. Whereas now, it's like they're trying something not uninteresting, unintelligent in places, and just no overarching hook to draw you in. And that's the big difference for me.
We're spoiled because we went from the huge Onslaught era to New X-Men to the Messiah era. And the books very much had purpose, and they were all gearing towards something much larger than the stories we're having, while still telling very good, on the ground stories. It feels that like midway through Krakoa, things started not mattering, and then now it's like, no, everyone's given up. They don't even care about continuity. And I've said this before when I was going through X Manhunt in the spring, which is they're not even respecting the own continuity they put in that issue. In that very issue itself, something different happens. And even with Sarah Gray returning, it's like they can't decide how she originally died. And when it's just a simple Wikipedia search at this point. And I said this on a review for the Vigil on a post. I feel like the Phoenix solo, for example, this is shade, but I don't want it to be so mean-spirited, but it feels like ChatGPT wrote it. Like that's like when she's like, "Oh, I was but a child when my sister Sarah instilled a Ouija board on me." I'm like, or enlisted me for a Ouija board. I'm like, what? That's not how people talk. That's how a machine talks. And it's just, there is a problem when you're not tuning in to the books. You yourself, who you've defended stuff that I hated. And there's a problem when I've wanted a solo Jean book in space as a Phoenix, and I'm not picking that up. I'll pick it up when it's something important. Or, by the way, you were the one who told me what happened with Sarah and Cable at the end, and I still haven't read that issue. I'm like, I'll just wait for it to be on Unlimited. That is it's a huge problem. I'm sorry.
I laughed my ass off. That is one of the few issues that I've read recently. I was like, I need to know what the hell. Why should I care about Sarah Gray, of all people, coming back from the dead? And I just wanted to read it because I was curious. And spoilers for those who haven't read it. She's resurrected. She has this overly long, complicated reason that she's resurrected. Turns out she's a mutant, blah, 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 blah. This is what she's been doing. And then, like, the second she's done, like, explaining all of that, Cable comes in and shoots her in the head. So, like, I'm sure she's going to come back and something is going to happen from that, but just, like, I laughed my ass off when, after all of that, it just ended with Cable coming in and shooting her in the head. I was just like, oh, perfect. This is just a metaphor for the X books in general right now. A bunch of shit happens, and then by the end of it, it's all inconsequential. Who gives a fuck? Like, it's very, very reminiscent of the X books in general right now.
All right, last one. Wait, we're gonna do a spoiler check here.
Okay,
I'm gonna ask you: have you finished Ironheart?
Yes.
Okay, so Familia, if you have not finished Ironheart, pause this episode right here. Go watch it. We're gonna talk about something that someone put in, and I agree with this too. Mephisto finally manifested in the MCU after years, like 5 years of speculation. What are your thoughts on it?
I thought it was great. I thought Ironheart was an amazing show, start to finish. The characters were so well developed. Her motivations were so well developed. It was her build up to becoming a hero was very much in line with how a lot of the more traditional Marvel heroes have been developed in the MCU. It was great. I absolutely loved it. And I think that it is brilliant to have, Mephisto is a very magic heavy character. I mean, there's no other way around it. He is pure magic, pure evil, darkness incarnate. So it would have made sense for him to show up in WandaVision. It would have made sense for him to show up in Multiverse of Madness. It would have, no one would have been surprised if he was behind all of the events in Agatha all along. But, and people, I've learned now that these spoilers were out there for years. I don't follow spoilers, so I had no idea. So for Mephisto to show up in a pizza joint in Chicago to have just a conversation with a completely non-magic character like Ironheart. I thought it was brilliant. I thought it was brilliant to have him show up in a place you would have never ever expected him to after everybody was like, oh, we're going to get him in WandaVision. Oh, we're going to get him in Multiverse of Madness. Oh, we're going to get him in Agatha. Oh, we got him in Ironheart. Like, it's the kind of twist and surprise that the MCU used to be very good at that I think they've kind of stopped being so good at.
Interesting.
Unfortunately, I don't think anyone cares.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think anyone cares. First of all, I just want to say that Mephisto being in Chicago at a pizza joint is very reminiscent of Supernatural season 5 when they meet Death at a pizza joint too, which I love that so much. I don't know if that's a direct homage or anything, but I just wanted to point that out. I agree. I don't think anyone cares. I agree that I like that he showed up here, but I can't help but wonder, Carrie Bradshaw style, had he been behind everything in, let's say, WandaVision or Agatha, how much fun that would have been to see Catherine Hahn versus Sacha Baron Cohen,
We're going to see that.
I don't know. I don't have faith that the MCU knows how to deliver those kind of moments to us anymore. I do agree, though, and I want to be very clear about this. I think Ironheart has gotten unnecessary hate, and a lot of people being like, oh, she's not a hero. That was the entire point of the series, that she is sort of cheating, taking these shortcuts. I think the actress who plays her was great. I love the character Slug. I do think it didn't need to be 6 episodes. 3 episodes a night was a little too much for my attention span.
Not to watch all 3 in one night.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's just, for me, peak Disney Plus is Agatha, where you're just like, holy shit, what's happening next? With this, it was kind of it reminded me of Orange is the New Black, where you're just binging everything and you're going through it. Or
that's the release schedule. They're completely different release schedules.
Well, they're different release schedules, but I think Marvel really wanted to do a one and done and just move past it. I don't know. I just think Ironheart deserved a little bit better of a series, but that's not to say that I don't think I think the unnecessary hate out there is extremely unfair. And I don't know where the MCU is going. I really hope Fantastic Four course corrects everything and gives all the characters the justice they deserve.
Well, from everything I've heard, everything post Secret Wars, the emphasis is going to be on mutants and magic. So I think that this is
Eminem.
Right. I think that this is a very good nudge in that, an interesting nudge in that direction, and it came from a character that nobody saw coming. And
did you not see it coming? Did you not see it coming? That was Quicksilver.
I was watching the show. I saw it coming, sure, but
that's Quicksilver's quote. Yeah, let's just see where everything goes. I'm happy that Mephisto's finally here, but again, I am shocked. My hot take is I am shocked that no one seemed to care. There are no spoilers for this anywhere.
They can't. The people who are such a problem on the internet these days, they can't act like they give a shit at all. Yeah. All they can talk about is the negatives. They can't give any aspect of this show props. Even Mephisto, even the character they've been waiting for, supposedly 10 years to see on screen, they can't compliment it, because if they compliment it, then they're complimenting Ironheart. And if they're complimenting Ironheart, then this bullshit argument that they don't have a leg to stand on completely falls apart as to why it's terrible. I don't know. I'm very, very sick of the discourse around the Marvel Cinematic Universe and all of these bad faith takes. Oh, she's not a hero because she committed crimes. I'm like, Tony Stark was a weapons manufacturer. How many innocent people did Tony Stark get fucking killed? And you're going to sit here and you're going to tell me that Ironheart's not a hero because she committed some robberies and killed one person who was trying to kill her? Go fuck yourself. That is a bad faith argument that I just don't even have time for. It's that kind of discourse, everything you've said. You're it felt like watching Orange is the New Black. The pacing wasn't as good. Legitimate criticisms. I don't think 99.9% of the criticisms out there about Ironheart are anything other than sexism, racism, decrying wokeism, all of the isms. It's absolute homophobia.
Well, and we saw that too. I'm sorry to interrupt you, because we saw that too with Thunderbolts. And Thunderbolts was legitimately a good movie. And, we can criticize certain aspects, everything you can look under a lens. But, like, I love what you said, and we talked about this with the Dazzler and Longshot Utopia issue, which is bad faith reading, bad faith interpretation. Like, it is a bad faith. Like, you have to, at a certain point, let these stories play out. And yes, we are hypercritical of everything as it happens. That's the nature of commenting online. But, like, what someone's doing when they're setting up a character that's flawed, that's going to overcome. Like, we've talked about this. You need drama in stories. Characters cannot act 100% like saints. They need to make mistakes. And you are in the right to not like these mistakes, because that is the point of the story. It's a parable for humanity. So it always gets me kind of like thrown off when I see from all sides, like when people are angry about A or B without seeing the larger forest for the trees. But anyways, those were our hot takes. And I think we're going on 2 hours once again, but I love it.
As usual. And I could go on for another 2 hours defending Ironheart. For people who haven't watched it, I think it's one of the best things that the MCU has done recently. You mentioned Thunderbolts, and Thunderbolts being a good movie. It is. I actually think I liked Ironheart more than I liked Thunderbolts.
Oh, that's your hot take.
That is my hot take. I loved it. I thought it isn't just a superhero show that deals with magic, but there's elements of PTSD and friendship and family, and it went in so many different interesting directions that were unexpected for me, and that is what I want. I want the MCU to surprise me in ways that the comics can't, and it was very successful on that front. So 2 enthusiastic thumbs up for Ironheart from Flinkman.
Should we review the Fantastic Four movie when it comes out?
Who likes the Fantastic Four? We definitely. Well, a part of me is like, yes, we definitely should, and the other part of me doesn't want to view it critically, because I want to just turn off my brain and enjoy it. Let's see how I feel next week when we get a little bit closer, because I don't want.
It'll either be us or just me monologuing for like a half an hour drunk. I'm like, I'm excited for. I have to tell you, I'm excited for Fantastic Four. I have been rewatching the trailers over and over again. I think Vanessa Kirby is phenomenal casting as Sue. I think the way, I'm forgetting the actress who plays Silver Surfer, forgetting her name. We talked about it too in one of our episodes.
Julia Garner?
Yeah, let's say Julia Garner. I think the way she's like, I herald your end, I herald his beginning, I herald Galactus. Like, the way it's delivered, perfect. I'm excited for it. I can't wait for Fantastic Four.
I've actually stopped watching trailers because I want to be.
I do think they give too much spoilers. It's true, they do give. They give way too many spoilers.
In this one particularly, they want to make sure that they lock the nerds. They get the nerd butts in the seats. So I think they're giving more away to sort of bring people. Because I think fucking 5 years ago, we would not have seen a full Galactus by now. That would be something the Marvel Cinematic Universe would have saved for once you're in the movie. But now they're like, oh shit, we want people to see this movie. We got to let them know we're giving them real Galactus. And that's a kind of a shame, but hopefully there's still some surprises and really cool stuff in the movie. I'm beyond excited for it. I'm beyond.
All right, Familia, we will also be here at the end of the month in Miami, July 29th at Books and Books with Lenore Zan. She's going to be reading from her book, and we will be emceeing that with Florida Shelf Love. And that's all I have on my end, at Power of X-Men on Instagram.
And, you can find me at Flinkman on Instagram and at Heritage Comics, showing off the goods.
All right, I'll see you next time.
Bye-bye!